I don't see how you can call your goggles moving to just the right place at exactly the right time and the synchronicity of the one paramedic who's trained in what you needed to survive. I mean, I would call those miracles. Does that resonate for you?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Things do happen for a reason. That's synchronicity, those miracles, however you want to describe it.
Hello and welcome to Real Men Feel. I'm your host, author, coach, and healer, Andy Grant. You can visit theandygrant.com to see how I might be of service to you. We have conversations that most men are not having, but that all men and the women who love them can benefit from. My returning guest today is Nick Prefontaine. Nick is a 3-time best-selling author and a top motivational speaker. At age 14, Nick suffered a life-threatening snowboarding accident, and his parents were told that he would probably never walk, talk, or eat again on his own. Today, Nick shares about his experiences working with me, including the changes and improvements he noticed in his life and business following a life activation. We also explore the resistance that many men have to energy work and the side effect of happiness when you are your authentic self. Let's do it. Welcome back to Real Men Feel, Nick.
Hey, happy to be here, Andy. I'm looking forward to this.
So when we first spoke, this is your second appearance on Real Men Feel. We first spoke, it was episode 326, came out last November. And in that, you shared your journey through trauma and the STEP system. And I'll include a link to that episode in the show notes for this one. But for a super quick summary, Nick shared his amazing story of surviving a life-threatening snowboarding accident at age 14 and overcoming massive odds to simply to walk, talk, and eat again. And we discussed his STEP system, support, trust, energy, and persistence that he used to recover and now teaches others to navigate trauma and life challenges. Does I feel like I nailed that?
Yeah, yeah, you did. And I can give like a 10,000 foot view as well to really catch the listeners up to where we are.
Great.
And like our work together. And I'm just like, thoroughly enthused about it. I'm excited about it after working together with you. So, yeah, it all goes back to a fateful day when I was at ski club with my friends in 8th grade. Going up the chairlift, we noticed that people were wiping out everywhere. However, that didn't slow us down, so we were ready to go. Got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards the biggest jump of the terrain park with all my speed. And going up to it, I caught the edge of my snowboard on the snow going up the jump, and that kind of threw me off balance. So I was told that I went off the jump off balance, and I later learned that I landed on my head and I wasn't wearing a helmet. The only protection that my head had was a pair of goggles. And I later learned that not only did they brace my impact as I continued to roll down the mountain and continued to hit my head, my goggles mysteriously moved to cushion each blow. And then the hospital wanted to send a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital. They couldn't because it was too windy, Andy. So they had to send in an ambulance. And out of the team of paramedics, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot. And I needed that to be able to breathe. And lucky for me, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. So those two things that were really, I wouldn't be here today if those two things didn't happen. And then the third was at the hospital. I was out. I was in a coma, unable to communicate with anyone in the intensive care unit. And each time the only people who were allowed in my room was my parents. And each time the doctors would come in to share the not so positive news, not so positive news, as I'm sure you or anyone listening knows, when you have an acute injury or a traumatic experience, they can't paint a rosy picture. So the doctors would come in to share that right in front of me, and my mom stopped them and she said, no, no, not in front of him, because she understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside the room, and then once they were there, that's when the doctors said that I was in a coma. They weren't sure how long I was going to be in a coma, and even if I came out, there was a good chance that I wouldn't be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again. And this is the third thing that I was talking about, because none of that got through to my mind. It just allowed me to treat it like any other situation. And what happened is, I was in the coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma. And then after a month, I was transported to a rehab hospital. And that's where I began my journey of having to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And it was unknowingly at that point that I started to use a system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And that's the STEP system. That's what you were referring to. It stands for support, trust, energy, and persistence. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. So I just wanted to fill in any gaps there for anyone that was wondering. Scratching it.
Cool.
What the heck are they talking about?
I appreciate that. I don't know if I asked you this before, but so you were in your early teens and you mentioned not wearing a helmet on the mountain that day. Should you have? Were you supposed to? Were you just kind of cocky, didn't care? Did you feel invincible? Like what? Why weren't you fully protected?
So all those questions, yes. A combination of all those. So I was cocky. I was confident that, I knew what I was doing. However, when I went to that mountain, that particular mountain, it was a Wachusett mountain, I would always wear a helmet. And then when I went to any other bigger mountain up north, I would always wear a helmet. So I would never wear that to the regular hill that was in the town that which I would go to every day. I would never wear it then. But then whenever I went to these bigger mountains, I would always wear it. And that day I had forgotten. I didn't think anything would happen. I just, be careful, and nothing ever did happen. So, and something did happen.
I don't see how you can call your goggles moving to just the right place at exactly the right time and the synchronicity of the one paramedic who's trained in what you needed to survive. I mean, I would call those miracles. Does that resonate for you?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, definitely. Things do happen for a reason. That's synchronicity, those miracles, however you want to describe it. Yeah, and then if you kind of move beyond that. So I was in inpatient rehab for a little under 2 months, and then I realized my goal of running out of the hospital. And after that, it wasn't like, all right, I'm all set. I can go back to my life. There was still a lot of work to be done after that. And I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months, along with being tutored all summer long in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. I graduated high school, found my way into real estate, got my real estate license, was working with buyers and sellers, sales. And then in 2014, I started to help my dad on the investor side with the marketing of his properties that he was getting non conventionally. So without using any of bank financing or cash or big investor payments or anything, that morphed into me not renewing my real estate license in January of 2016, joining him full time, and then coming up with a process that we have to bring all these buyers to make sure that they're successful when they get to the end of their agreement and they're going to be able to get their own loan. That's what I've really been doing. And we've been holding events since 2016 where I've always had the opportunity, and I've shared this with you privately, I think. I've always had the opportunity to tell my story from stage to our with events once or twice a year. So ever since I got out of high school, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's always been telling me, yeah, great, Nick, but what you really need to be doing is telling your story from stage and helping trauma survivors or life challenge survivors through whatever they're going through so that they're able to thrive with the rest of their lives. So by telling my story once or twice a year in our events, I always thought it was scratching that itch. And then it was in 2019 that someone heard me speak at one of our events, the last one before COVID, I believe it or not. And she approached me and she said, I love your story. I'm not looking to steal you from your dad. However, if you're ever looking to fine tune your message and bring it to another level, I can introduce you to a few coaches and mentors that have helped me get started. Well, I wasn't ready yet. However, I always hung on to her card, her information. And then that voice just kept growing, getting louder and louder. In May of 2021, I finally reached out to her and I said, okay, I'm ready. What should I do? She introduced me to her mentor, who became my mentor, Trisha Brook. And from my first call with her, there's been no voice in the back of my head. So, what that's evidence to me of is that I'm doing exactly what I was put in this earth to do. So I had a call with her. I told her my goals, what I was looking to do. And I said, do you think that's possible? She said, absolutely. I said, all right, what do you think I should do? She said, the speaker salon. You commute to New York City for 6 weeks in a row. And then on the 6th week, you get to work on stage at the Triad Theater in New York City. And then for 5 weeks. And then on the 6th week, you get to perform for influencers, 10X organizers, other event organizers and planners, podcast hosts, everything like that, that are looking for speakers to book on their platforms, on their show, their stages. So I said yes. She said, okay, that's 25,000. So I did that. And then halfway through the speaker salon, she pitched the idea of what it would look like to work with her one-on-one. And she said she specializes in helping speakers build out their speaker platform. I didn't even know what that was. However, I just knew I wanted more of her and what we were building. So I said yes. And as a result of that, now working with her one on one, she helped me launch my company, Common Goal. And now I know what build out a speaker platform means because now I'm giving keynote talks 50 and 60 minutes long, plus 50 and 60-minute plus talks to brain injury associations, other organizations that support individuals that are going through trauma. To me, if you would have told me that prior to Trisha, like back in 2019, that I would be doing that, I would have told you that you were insane. Really, that led me to I've been doing a lot of podcast guesting, and that led me to be on your show last year. That led to us working together one on one for four different, I believe, Andy, it was four different sessions. And I am really the word I just feel like so much more dialed in after our word together. And if you want to talk a little bit about that and like what that kind of looks like, because everyone is different. Everyone, what they need and what their soul needs is different.
Just to help people figure this out, the Mount Wachusett, where you had your accident at age 14, is 5 minutes from my house where I live now. And we were speaking after the show, and I discovered that you came to Massachusetts and you saw someone you had been doing energy work for a while. So I told you about what I had, and we worked together for 4 months. We did a session each month. The first one was called the Life Activation. And all four are from the Modern Mystery School, which I've been an initiate and in healer with since 2016. It can only be done in person. The Life Activation starts with sort of clearing old energy out of the way, and then we literally put more light into your physical body. And it's meant to deepen your connection to your divine blueprint, to have even more clarity over your mission, your purpose, bring you that dialed in sense that you already said. So that was the big thing, and that having that opens up the opportunity for more healings, more refinements, more specialties. You talked about being dialed in. So what else have you noticed from the Life Activation in terms of your business and perhaps your personal relationships? Like what else has stood out for you?
Well, I think the word and I want to say this, that I'm learning to trust myself, my feelings, my intuitions, more so than prior to that. And I think the word is discernment. The thing is, I say I'm learning to trust myself is I actually talked with a coach of mine who's I'm not really working with, but just a fellow person speaker who I've kept in touch with over the years. And I don't know if I shared this with you, and it was probably in early February. I had just done some networking and reached out to him, and the feedback that he gave me, it just didn't, I knew it wasn't for me. Like, I discerned myself, thank you. I'm kind of going this way, this path. And the discernment that would have, I think prior to my work with you, Andy, that would have like set me on this path and like threw me into a tizzy, like, oh, I have to be doing this now. But now I know, like, the discernment that I feel is really terrific because, I mean, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah. I love how happiness is this amazing side effect from strengthening your discernment, knowing what things would serve you and what things just don't connect, and trusting that. It's a challenge for many people. It was a challenge for me for a long time that I put more stock in the opinions of others than I did in my own inner self. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what from what you're sharing with me, I'm hearing that, yeah, it doesn't matter what someone else says anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I know this helps me, or I know it doesn't. Thanks for your time. Move on. Or yes, I get a huge yes out of myself for this, and let's do that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you said have I noticed the changes and like what has happened since then? I have talked about the podcast guesting. When I first met you, I was doing 4 or 5 interviews a month. I've now doubled my guesting to 10 interviews a month. I just couldn't be happier because it's continuing to give me the platform to be able to share my message and tell my story and to help more people.
Awesome. And one of the things we did 2 sessions of something called soul retrieval. And this is a really ancient shamanic exercise. Anyone that has experienced trauma, and especially anyone that's had any sort of near death experience, a coma, a portion of our soul can splinter off and flee and hide and just out of fear, out of shock. And whenever I meet someone that's had an experience like you have, I bring this up because that's who I see the biggest impact. I mean, I think everybody would benefit from it, but if you've had a literal shock to your system and things are splintered off, and I know we did 2 sessions. My recollection is the second one was really hit home. And so, what were your impressions of that the soul retrieval?
Oh, it was I don't know if you remember this, but I said after I did it the first time, I didn't necessarily say, I didn't verbalize it to you, but I was like kind of feeling like within myself, like in angst within myself, if that makes sense. Like, not really my favorite of the, like all the sessions and everything. And I mentioned that the next time I came back, the next month that I came back, and I mentioned that. And I think you said, well, if you're, you use the word afraid, like, hey, it could be you're afraid to do that. And I took that as like a challenge. I was like, oh, I'm not afraid. What do you mean afraid? And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna see this through. I've already gone this far. I've already gone halfway or a quarter. I'm not gonna like abandon it now. Like, I gotta see this through. The what came out as far as that and some of the insights that you share with me, I don't think I've ever shared this. The waiting room, like the waiting room at the intensive care unit, none of my friends could come see me in the room at the hospital room at the in the ICU. However, they were always relegated to the waiting room. And I didn't even have that conversation with you. And you said you were almost, it was almost like you were picking up pieces of me that were on the chairs in a rectangular, circular, or square room that was the waiting room, and like picking them up and then putting them back like into me. And I couldn't believe that you said that. I was blown away by that. So I was so happy I followed the process through. Because I think without it, I would have just stopped and been like, no, that maybe that's not for me or whatever, and I would have missed out on all the benefits that I'm getting as a result.
Yeah. So often soul retrieval is a multiple session sort of thing. It ends when your body, your soul says, that's enough for this time. And during the first one, I could tell we were working on things, but we weren't hitting the accident. And we had to like lay some groundwork before those pieces would be willing to return. And it's funny. I would not have remembered that I said that you were afraid of it. I in my mind I was like, oh no, you have resistance. I'd be gentle. But so yeah, if saying you were afraid is what fired up your masculinity to say, no, I'm not, Andy. I'll show you. Like, great. I'm glad to hear that. So for soul retrieval, the client you just laid down, and I don't know if you could drift in out of sleep. There really wasn't anything you need to do, and I do some work, and it's usually a very very visual experience for me, but I don't. It's not like a play by play. So once we were done, we kind of talked about what did you feel and notice, and I told you what I felt and notice. What I remember the most is that I got a clear message that we're just going to focus on this number of months to be retrieving things back. And then when we spoke after, that was the exact length of your stay in the hospital.
Yep.
Again, I knew I knew about your accident. I didn't know details, and the visuals I had to gather the missing pieces of you. There was a snow rake going down a mountain, getting all the pieces, and then then I was in an ambulance, then I was in the ER, and then as you mentioned, I was in a waiting room, and just getting all these pieces from all these different people is what it felt like. Like friends of yours carried the bits of your soul that scattered, and it was an amazing experience of love and connectedness. I remember being on the verge of tears during the session for you. I was like, I gotta pull it together. I can't get lost in my experience. I'm gonna be serving Nick. Yeah, so that was again from my end. It was the most powerful soul retrieval I've been honored to be part of.
Well, that's just you bringing up these memories is the about saying you were like raking the mountain, because if you think of it from the point of my accident until early March, I don't have any memory of that because it was a coma, partially induced coma. So even though I had my eyes open and then they said I came out of my coma, I didn't know. So for you to say all those little things, like to collect pieces of me from the mountain, from Wachusett Mountain, from the ambulance, like in the ambulance, and then into the waiting room, where all my friends were. That really hit home with me, and I was so happy I followed this process through with you.
A common fear is that, well, if I know I lived through something horrific, like if I welcome that back, am I going to relive it? Am I going to experience it? Right. But everything that returns to you it's clean of any trauma. It's the highest aspects of yourself that again just got frightened and splintered away for their own survival. So have you noticed anything since that session? Like I don't know. I don't know how, like, do you feel that you're more together? Do you feel full? Like what's it been like since that for you?
Yeah, so I used to feel like I'll use this example, like on the weekends, for example, like going out, going to have dinner, like going out and going to have dinner at a bar or something like that. I used to feel like, oh, okay, I have to be doing that, but now I'm like, if I don't have any plans, I'm totally okay just staying at home with my dog, hanging on the couch. I'm like, I'm okay doing that. So it's I think a calm and like a knowing within me that I'm like I'm going to like I'm set to have these experiences in my life, whether I do one thing or the other. So it's kind of it's a knowing, and kind of like a I don't know. It's really hard to put into words. I'm um I'm just so happy that we did it though, because now I feel like I have even more to share with the world than I had before.
Cool. So with that sense, What are you desiring? Right? What's your deepest desire for how to share more of yourself with the world? What possible ways does that show up? It might just is it strengthening what you're already doing, or have there been glimmers of new ideas that you haven't explored yet?
So I think prior to doing all these sessions with you, like the life activation, the soul retrieval, everything like that, I just had in my mind success, or not success, but where I wanted to get to with following this calling and following my speaking is okay. I have to be getting stages, and every year I've been getting more and more stages to be able to tell my story at different people's events and everything, organizations events and everything like that. Now I realize, and I've already shared that I've doubled the number of interviews, guests, like podcast guesting. I've doubled that. Now I realize it's so much more than that. It's not just stages. It's really getting my message out there to more and more people. And I think podcasting is allowing me to do that. It's allowing me to get my message out there to more and more people. Yeah, that's kind of changed my definition of, oh, okay, I have to be doing like events. I That's kind of change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's more adjustable, your mission. There's a container, but it's pliable.
Yeah, I think what I was locked into before, which is to say that it has to be different events with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people, is to say that was like an ego. That was an ego thing, I think. I'm open and receptive to having the opportunities, and those will come. I understand that. Because what I have to share is powerful, and the step system, support, trust, energy, and persistence, is powerful. And it's not just that, because doing podcast guesting, and now I really, everything I do, it's not just one thing, like just speaking or just podcast guesting. It's everything that I'm doing. I'm meeting people in every different form and fashion of my life that really feels more right, if that makes sense. Whereas I was locked into, okay, I have to be getting stages and speaking and telling my story on the stage, but doing this is exactly that. And that will come. I understand that. And again, I'm open and receptive to those opportunities coming. I'm not shunning that. However, right now, this is what is giving me fulfillment, telling my story and being able to spend time with like you, like I'm doing here today, to tell my story.
Yeah, I'm having a flashback. I think it was during the life activation, and I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but the notion that everybody you meet, everybody you talk to, be it at a convenience store, be it waiting in line to get a gas pump, every communication you have with someone, it is your keynote address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're always on because you're generally being you. So it's not just something you save. Oh, here comes Nick for stage. No, it's who you are
It's
all
who
the
I
time.
am. Yes, it's who I am. And when you say I'm always on, it's not that I have to pretend to be anyone else, because this is who I am.
So you mentioned when I said that, oh, you might be afraid of this next session, and that kind of riled you up and got you ready to go. What would you say to men? Because I serve a lot more women come to me for these healings than men. So what would you say to skeptical men now that you've had the experience and you experienced your own skepticism as well?
Great question. I didn't have an agenda, just because we were together, and I knew we would be able to get to and share what was the most important thing. What would I share to people, men specifically, having resistance? I would say just give it a chance. What do you have to lose? Because for me, it was, I went into it working with you, and in the first session and the second session, I was like, all right, this is kind of a cool thing. Like, this is kind of a fun thing. But then after the second session, I was like, and there's something here. There's something here. I have to continue to explore this with him because there's really something here that I'm starting to tap into. And I think without giving myself the opportunity to do that, all would be for naught, I guess you could say. So if anyone's skeptical out there about working with you and doing like these life activations, soul retrieval, I would say to just give it a chance. Just give it a chance and see where it goes. And once you're in it, it's hard to walk away from to say like, oh no, I'm all set with this. I don't want to improve my life. I don't want to continue to evolve an upward spiral. I forget what they call those, but I don't want that. I want to stay stuck where I am in fear and lack and limitation. So I'd say just give it a chance and be open to it.
Yeah, very true. Very, very accurate. That's my experience as well. For I got into energy work. I think like 2008 or nine is when I first discovered like what is this stuff, and what I've learned most since then is that energy work is much better experienced than explained. And men tend to be more logical, and we decide it's nonsense or too woo woo, and just yeah, you got to be willing to open up a little bit, try it. I always joke that there's a misery back guarantee. If we do something together and you don't like it, you can go back to being miserable. That's fine, right? But actually, if you did all the work that you've done and then tried to be miserable about it, I think it wouldn't be that easy. Actually, it'd be a challenge. But
When I met you, when I was on the show the first time and I met you and I learned about the work that you're doing, I was my soul. I was like I need, like, I have to, there's something here. I have to explore. I was almost drawn to you. I told you that. And I was waiting after for you to circle back around to me and reach back out to me. You're like, oh, you should have sent me a message. And I was like, no, I trusted what God of the universe had in store.
I appreciate you sharing all of your experiences doing this because this is a very personal, private thing. I think this is really being a great service to people because all the work we're talking about, it can only be done in person, and it's not me. This is from the Modern Mystery School. There are practitioners all around the world. So if anybody is really intrigued, wants to know more, I'm glad to play matchmaker and find someone closer to you, or you can come. We can stop at Mount Wachusett, and you can come see me in Massachusetts. And so either way is fine. But I just want to clarify that for people. And one more thing I want to ask you, Nick. With everything you've experienced now, with being of so much service and sharing of yourself, if you could go back and whisper something in the ear of your 14-year-old self just before that run down the mountain, what might that be?
Such a good question. I don't think I've got this question before. I would say I don't even know as if I would say like, because you're not saying I could alter. Okay, I would say that it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
Has it in fact been more than okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I
Well,
was gonna I was gonna continue after I said that, but then I was like, I don't think anything else is needed. I was going to say like, no, you're about to go through something, but slow down. Not then in that moment because I was like high octane, ready to go, but just for later, like for the accident and like life after the accident, like that's kind of how I interpreted that question. So I would say just slow down, make sure you're doing everything properly, and you'll get there. Just keep going.
Nick, is there one thing top of mind that you wish more men knew?
I think what's out there and communicated with us, to men, that is, since childhood, is it's not right for everyone. Everyone's different, and that's completely okay. I just think too many people will grow up a certain way and then think I have to be that way.
And Nick, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Okay, so a few things. The what we went over, and you referred to the previous show I was on, where I went into depth on the step system, and even that was only a 10,000 foot view. However, if my anything about my story and the step system really like piqued your interest and you felt drawn to it, check out nickprefontaine.com/step, and you're going to be able to download the entire step system for free, which teaches you all about support, trust, energy, and persistence.
Nick, it's been a pleasure seeing you in person, knowing you over the 4 months of working together, checking in via emails and calls. And yeah, I've often say this. I wish I could take a picture of what I see working on people in my head and what's presented, because like you were already a shining example of a man being of service, of someone that took their experience, made the best out of it, and continued to make the even better and better out of it. And as you said, I could tell that there was more. And I don't know what the more is going to be, but it's going to show itself to you because you keep stepping forward. You keep listening to yourself. You keep honoring your discernment. So I'm excited. I'm still excited for you. I'm excited to see what's next. I'm excited to see the version of Nick 20 years from now and just all of it. So again, thanks so much for sharing your experience that you share often, your life journey, and also sharing your really private experience that you had working with me.
You're very welcome. And I think because I share like you said, I'm always on. It's all of me, and that's what I'm sharing. That may be why I'm so open and vulnerable to share my very private experience working with you one on one, is because this is what I'm doing. I'm sharing my experience with the world, be it what's happening now or what happened 20 years ago. I think more people need to know.
Thanks for joining us today. Please visit realmenfeel.org and see the blog post for this episode, which will have all the various links and resources discussed. If you are intrigued about life activation, full spirit activation, or soul retrieval, please reach out to me. Visit theandygrant.com. And as I said in the show, all of this work can only be done in person. And if you aren't near me, if you can't come to Massachusetts and are interested, I will work with you to find someone where you live that can offer these services to help your growth and life. That's how important this work is. I don't care who you do it with. I just want you to do it. Until next time, be good to yourself.